Welcome back to Deep Thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. Just taking a quick break here from a little bit of work. Ever since they put that razor blade on top of your shaving razor blade that could do the kind of hair underneath your nose, and then you drop the blade, you pop an old one out, you put a new one in, and then a couple days later you go to grab it and it's stuck to the sink countertop because the little lube strip turned into glue, and then you're pulling on the goddamn thing. I sliced the top of my finger on that thing. It's just kind of funny. So today I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to call this. I know what I want to talk about. So I don't know about you, but I always wonder. I wonder a lot of stuff, of course, but one of the big ones is sort of how everybody is motivated in life and what coincidentally makes people gullible. Because they're going after something and whoever's there got there first, figured out a scam, and so when they arrive, blah, 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 and everybody falls for something. And there's way more layers to this of complexity of trying to have a purpose because life has gotten way too convenient where people have time to get involved with things that they would never be involved in. But I don't want to go down some super dark road, so don't worry. I'm not going to try to rehash who's good and who's bad and all that kind of stuff. We will talk about the algorithm of it, and then we're going to study things like space agencies and that kind of stuff, right? Other institutions. Now, I'm going to come at this initially from an example in my own life, which is, you look at places like NASA and you're like, oh my God, how the hell did they get so huge so fast, And the answer is, they made missiles for the military. That's all they've ever done. Everything else is either Hollywood or light accomplishments compared to what they've been able to accomplish in the missile realm. All significant, all impressive, but mainly for the military. I'm driving down the road. I believe I was in San Mateo, California. My girlfriend's mother's in the back seat. And it's a great day. It's a beautiful day. We're just driving around. Not quite sure what the hell we were doing. But this debate, well, not really a debate, a story comes up about some piece of information. Can't even remember what the hell it was. And you hear me say this little quote on the show. If you're OG listeners, this is where the quote came from. Something didn't smell right, about whatever was being said. And I said, well, something to that effect. Well, I don't know. That sounds a little weird. And then the mother said, who's a wonderful person, but she just said, well, it came from so-and-so, and he works for NASA because he had a badge that got him through the door in the NASA headquarters or, NASA premises. He's a genius. She surrenders. Mystery solved. She's good with life. If that dude said there's two gods, one of them's got red hair, one of them is kind of calico, that's it, man. That dude's complete authority, and she is satiated. And because she's smart, she'll repeat that. Smart. At no point is there the other process of intellectually connecting things and making sure that there's any validity to what's being said. But that's how life is. That's how this society operates at this point, isn't it? So you've got this sort of military-industrial complex, and it is like laundering all of these Nazis through this brand new organization, which stands for not a space agency, and they've got to turn this into some sort of cleansed, pretty, beautiful thing that the public can get behind. And man, did they ever knock it out of the park. Because they did create this beautiful thing. We all, initially, I think every human being gets into it is admiring at the claims of what these folks said they did. There's things to admire, but it's a little macabre. It's that ICBM popping out of a Trident submarine, bursting through the ocean and ejecting its shell and taking off at 4,000 miles an hour. That's impressive. Okay, man, that's like, holy shit. Okay. But I think that the organic element to the whole thing, which we're going to get into, because I'm going to rewind like I normally do, to sort of the inceptional moments of man, to explain this phenomenon, is that NASA provides this quaffing authority to unanswered questions and mysteries and things that are just interesting. I don't think your average person sits in their living room going, I really feel nervous. And I'm like, hey, why are you feeling nervous? And they're like, because NASA's about to announce something. And if they don't have that answer from NASA, then it's my life is going to just implode. It's a multiverse. I'm afraid. I'm scared. No one does that. It's just this thing. And because it's, in America, it's obviously tied to our American flag, and, it's part of our patriotism and self-identity. We keep fueling this thing with $60 million a day. Okay, 600 degrees from colleges across our country are fried every day, keeping that place alive. Now we have Space Force. Okay, so let's take a second and let's just calmly go through early man trying to deal with the information that man is getting. Now remember, as we always recount on this show from time to time, if you can't conceive of something, then you really aren't having that thought yet. You may see and feel the effect of a particular thing that's occurring in your universe, but if you don't understand it, then you just have this uneasiness about you. But a mystery is a big deal. They say, the curiosity killed the cat sort of thing, right? I've never seen a cat get killed by curiosity myself, but I would say curiosity killed the human for sure. We want to know things. And there's different avenues and different categories of what we want to know. But the most fundamental one is anything that can harm us, we need to know about that thing. And we have all these instincts that take place. And I'll just give you a really funny example. And after I give you this example, I'm going to ruin your life a little bit, and you're going to laugh every time it's ruined. Haven't you noticed, you'll be in your office, you'll be in your front room, especially in your car, and there's an item somewhere in your close proximity, you just put it there. Usually something small, something insignificant, a ballpoint pen, something small, not like a Fabergé egg or a glass of full water next to your laptop, which you should never do. Always bottle water in front of laptops. But anyway, you accidentally reach over and you nudge this thing and it's about to fall. And you leap into your Spider-Man move and you save it. In your car. I wrecked my car once. Not horribly, but I probably broke my CV boot or hurt it because I was doing a U-turn. This is like 25 years ago. I was doing a U-turn in my car. And I had something in the console and it flew as a result of me doing this really tight turn. And I reached for it completely instinctually. And I didn't complete the U-turn, the turn radius, and my front tire just kissed the curb on the side, tangent to the curb, but it probably did it a job. I can't remember if I didn't drive away with a weird sound or anything, but I probably knocked my car out of alignment and hurt the rim for sure. And I remember thinking back, why do I give a shit whether or not some tiny little thing is flying off the console of my car? Happened to me today. Just bumped a little item and I was boom, and I was grabbing. I was like, oh God, that's that instinct shit that we've got deep down inside of ourselves. And you got to understand, you got a bunch of those. But some of them, instead of being compact frequencies of sharpness where you're going to violently, try to grab something, take that sine wave of moment and drag it out. Make it a really long sine wave, and that could be your curiosity. You still have this addiction to satisfying points of mystery, because in the past, points of mystery could be the difference between life and death. You ever see it when, the modern world breaches these areas of the world where they still have tribes that are out there in the middle of jungles, and they touch just like, like the monkeys on 2001: A Space Odyssey when they touch the monolith. I mean, that the miming of the early man touching that thing was brilliant, because you just want to sample it. You just want to touch it and make sure you're not going to burn. It's not going to hurt you, because you don't even know what the hell the thing is, right? We would all do that, and I think we do all do that if we are presented with something of complete mystery without anyone in the room smiling and going, hey, so I got you this gift. It's really cool. I was playing with it before I got it to you. And then you're like, oh, okay, so it's safe to play with. And then all those cautions go to the wind. Now, we probably, regardless of how we were created, whether we were created by an alien race where we were literally dropped off on the planet with a fairly substantive brain, at some point, you either have to give the replicant memories, or you got to let them figure it out themselves. And even if you usher in, okay, you're living in this nice tropical area called Egypt, it will be called Egypt at the future point in time, and you see you got plenty of food, and the predators are fairly subdued, and you can fish right there, and, you're good. You have plants and berries and whatever. And so they kind of get this little training wheel world. It's just like World of Warcraft, right? Your starting zone where people can't even kill you. If they try to help you do quests, it doesn't give you any score. It just destroys your targets, and you have to take a little longer to get the job done. If you study design, for instance, like packaging design, which not like cardboard boxes, but the engineers have, say, created this video camera, and they've got all the components on a tabletop, and they're like, okay, now we need you to create an enclosure for this thing to make it as sexy as possible, just like Johnny Ives used to do for Apple. Well, they will teach you in design that sharp edges have an effect on the human mind. Sharp edges are a surface geometry that scares the human mind. Round edges makes man feel pleasant. All of the designs for Mickey Mouse were all based on, the two bosom, ears. Everything was just nice and round. Of course, if he wears white gloves, he's a Mason, right? So when you look at a car that's got a lot of sharp edges, it's usually a sports car because it represents that aggression. Smoother cars are more for your grandma and your grandpa, the Grand Marquis of the world. The Dodge Stratus. But going back and thinking about it, as soon as we satisfy the basics of life so that we don't get killed, I will tell you what, if we had figured out all of the indigenous animals that were potentially capable of making us their prey, and we figured out how to kill them. Well, the lion's the toughest one. The tiger's like second to that, and elephants, they're kind of cool. Just, don't get in their space, right? But everything's cool until a new animal shows up, and then everyone's going to panic. Everyone's going to try to figure out how to kill a hyena. Man, I tell you, hyenas are huge animals. I swear to God. They're like between a small horse and a dog. Never realized it. Now, when you upgrade, then you start branching out into new areas. Again, I talked about in my pattern episode, I don't even know what season that was, 1 or 2, I'm sure, that we're pattern-based beings. And once we get tired of patterns, some of us will get tired of patterns. Other people will rely on those patterns not changing because it brings peace and calm to us, right? So they venture out. They go past the elephant bone graveyard. They just want to know. And you know what? Maybe they just want some space to themselves because their brain is starting to actually circle back on itself as opposed to just bringing in information from outside, processing it, and fleshing it out. That's early man. We were living in the now. There was no linear thought. There was no future. Past, I don't know. Past is hard to deny any being. Animals seem to learn things, but they've probably upgraded as well. But you start upgrading. You start doing things like looking up at the sky and looking at the stars and going, what the hell is that? You might see a cluster of stars and start to imagine things. You might look at clouds and start seeing bunny rabbits or whatever matches the pattern recognition of what you understand in this world at that time and that place. And, who knows? It would be amazing to find out when the first Homo sapiens sapien leaned over to another one and said, "You see that right there? That looks like a fox, doesn't it? That looks like Grandpa's nose right there." Right? I mean, whatever it was, they actually externalized a virtual reality up there. How much happened prior to that moment occurring? And how deep inside the evolution, even if God made us, we're still evolving our brains and stuff, maybe not our genomes as much. But we're here, and we're going through all these experiences. Now, for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, man is trying to figure this stuff out all by him or herself. And the only one that can really teach you at this point are your parents or your siblings, or if you're close to the village itself. And the village that does better in the world is the one that's going to be making those explanations early in life so that the kid's more equipped when they get older to hunt, to cook, to whatever it is, right? So it's an honorary system. Now, fast forward up to perhaps the first university. Now, some things have taken place between the village and the university we have to pay attention to. We'll often talk about the snake oil salesman. As much as Rick Gervais's invention of a lie is a comedy, there's truth to that movie, okay? At some point, someone probably got something wrong, unintentionally. And that swayed some behavior because people believed it. Imagine you wanted to go into a village and steal all their stuff. So you come in and you're this really nice person or group of people. And you simply say, right over this hill, there's a bunch of, food and water and money and what have you. And you convince all the men of the tribe to go in that area, and you're just talking it out. "Oh, man, this is great. So good to meet you, man." And all of a sudden they go off a cliff and everybody's dead, and they just go back and tell the women what to do. Worst case scenario, they convince everybody to do it, and they just take all their stuff and go on to the next place. And you could just lie. You could just lie until the human consciousness starts to spread that algorithm around to the point where you come and say that, and they just go, "Yeah, no thanks. We're good. We're good." No, you just keep going. And, don't let the palm tree hit you in the ass on the way out, sort of thing, right? Then you get to a university. It's unclear to me what might have been the original university, but Greece is definitely on the map for being the most documented version of this part of history once we started to read, revised writings about who we are. Now, at the elite level, you're going to have people that are going to be discovering so much, because once you start documenting things, you're going to have an avalanche, right? It's like the internet. Almost every single one of you alive that can hear my voice has seen the avalanche of the internet evolution. Got weird little services online, and then all of a sudden you have really complex services online. Initially you might buy a book from Amazon in 1993, 94, 95, and now you can subscribe to Dollar Shave Club, and then it's, you're getting really cool products in the mail, and then you get a product almost over, like within 12 hours, you put the order in and a warehouse brings it to your front doorstep. You get food brought to your house. Oh my God. You can study all kinds of metrics on processors, and it's just incredible, right? The whole world service catalog went to the web, and then another 50% at least was added to it. Applications you couldn't imagine running through a web browser are now running through web browsers. By the way, one of the coolest websites I've been using now for 4 months is called Mural, mural.com. It's basically a huge surface that you share with your workmates in design. So they put things on the screen. It's not a video service. It's actually I don't know, it's probably React or something, but it's painting all the pictures on. So if you move your mouse, you click a button, it watches the mouse arrow. So someone would be talking on the phone and they're just, over here, I want to put this here, and you can draw lines, put Post-its and all kinds of crazy stuff. It's an amazing product. It's changed my life. But anyway, back to our situation here. Why does anybody want to know anything in the modern realm? We're good, right? We got cars, we got flat screen TVs. We're good. Well, it's because it elevates you in a world that actually has class structure. Although stealth class structure, some worlds admit it. The problem with admitting class structure is that it doubles down in its authoritarianism. It doubles down to the point where you simply can't go places, you can't wear certain clothing without getting in trouble because you don't have the class. One of the funniest things in Are You Being Served is they kept saying, do you live in a detached house? That was one of the biggest jokes. And then one of the funniest replies was, yeah, she lives in a detached house because they tore down all the other houses around it. But, there's an episode where Captain Peacock couldn't wear a particular type of bolo hat. He had to go get a different hat, a Windsor or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but there's all kinds of stair-stepping hats that you could wear, and you had to wear them to announce who you were to the public, like a scarlet letter. Bizarre, right? But now let's think about some of these agencies. Because once the university existed, you then formalize the process of the privilege to get the information. And, imagine someone that literally knows nothing. I mean, they exist today in droves, but they don't want to admit it. But back in the day, it would have been very simple in the time of Greece to have a person walk up to you who may be dressed well, and you want to assess them. And you simply ask them, do you read or write? And the second they can't read or write, boom, they're way down on the totem pole. Well, that's sort of your social credit system back in the day. You wouldn't be able to necessarily bump elbows with everyone. Now, say Socrates was very famous for, if the story is true, for being a scholar for the people. And they sort of hated the guy because he was sort of renegade man. No one was too low to be in his circle. So supposedly they killed him, right, for stealing a chicken or something. Something like that. But now you have an institution. The first institution of knowledge was probably the temple. It was way before Christ's time. A priest says that they have the gateway to heaven. Ooh, well, that sounds really familiar, right? Every religion seems to devolve down to a man that will give you authority to get to heaven. There's your scam right there. But you didn't want to go to hell, right? Because they'd always make some sort of punishing realm. The Old Testament was pretty damn brutal, wasn't it? And they say, we think it was written 4,500 years ago. Well, I'm going to assume that regardless of how old man was, this thing came around a long time ago. Like if the pyramids were built around 35,000 AD, or BC, as we believe, at its earliest, based on Graham Hancock's research, the Old Testament probably went back way before that. Just some basic stories, right? Now I understand you got King Solomon and that kind of stuff, and that seems to be definitely refreshed by Francis Bacon for us. But you don't want to go to hell, so you've got to talk to a guy that's going to tell you how you're not going to go to hell. And there's always a little bit of a scratch on the side, right? Could come in the form of money, could come in the form of, I like your wife, she's really pretty, or your daughter, or your little son, whatever. Okay, here, just take it. Not realizing that this, later on, thousands of years later, we're going to have rules against that shit. We can't understand the thought process that was going through mankind back in those days. We simply can't. It's too intense. We don't know what it was like. We don't know what the struggles were like back in those days. We just don't. I know this is no mystery, and I've kind of been beating this up a little bit recently, but I just want you to groove with me here. So that when you see the sociology of man, as you live life, you can see this lust pattern right in your face. It will give you so much power not to fall for it yourself. And you'll laugh and, and smirk when you find yourself doing the exact same stuff. Even after hearing this episode and perhaps even agreeing with me, you'll go, oh my God, that's my little thing, huh? That's weird, right? I don't know what century we would earmark in history for what I'm about to say, but there had to be a point when so many different types of institutions were created, from religious institutions, educational institutions, military institutions, government institutions, where they realize that there's an anatomy to these things. One, there's the functional anatomy that regardless of any scam, these things have to be put in place. If you build a building, someone's got to protect it, clean it. You have to have offices to mirror your workforce. If someone's got supreme power and it is an icon of your particular nation's or people's ability to invent and build something, you build a Taj Mahal, you build an Eiffel Tower, you build a White House, you build a Buckingham Palace, the Parliament. These things are designed and built to look amazing so that they have this what's called command presence. When you're in its presence, it commands you by sheer design. The Catholic churches around the world, regardless of what we might think of that particular institution, they're amazing. They're kooky. Some of them make you feel like you're almost in a haunted house. They're big and they're Gothic and they're thought out. And just looking at the stained glass, looking at the construction and the beams, especially in Europe. I mean, you guys are so lucky just to be able to walk into a cathedral that's like 1,000 years old. I mean, that's just incredible. But today we have it. We have it in spades. Institutions that people just have fandom around. NASA's one of them. SpaceX is another. The corporations have figured out loyalty and they want to make you feel proud to have an Apple thing. Now, back in the day, I fell for this as well, especially the Apple thing, because I was like, this system does more. It does way more, and I can get a lot more done networking devices together in the early 90s, and it just works. Just put this serial cable bouncing around your house. Oh my God, everyone's got a printer all of a sudden. You could share a modem. I mean, it was amazing. Eventually, everyone kind of caught up. But I probably wasn't like snooty about it or like I had something that smelled bad under my nose sort of thing. But I definitely had that, I'm making a better decision with my money and I'm getting more done with life. I'm creating more creative things faster and quicker and more accurate and more impressive because I have chosen better machines and better software to get it done. That's the power of solving these mysteries. What's fascinating to me, it was that when I grew up, certain institutions were known for being educational institutions of some sort, or at least inventive, like a NASA or something like that. They would invent something, and what was it, the vector car, all the vents that go up and down the hood of the car, were some aerodynamic thing that NASA figured out, I'm sure they did. Push a missile, 2,000 to 4,000 miles an hour, and you're going to figure out a lot about what a bolt does to the aerodynamic nature of the surface of a cylinder, right? But then we got this sort of perversion before we got this craziness that we're in today. When I was a kid, it was weird when they would have a probe. And again, we know why this is the case today, but let's just say you believed all the hype, okay? You believed everything was real that these individuals claimed in the news. But a probe would go off and look at Venus or go look at Mars or whatever, the moon. This big data set would come back and these scientists would never report anything. So we're all excited. It got there. It looked at Venus and whatever. Let's just say we believe everything that they're telling us. And then the data would just disappear. They do a press conference and say, my God, I remember when the one went into Jupiter. Again, who knows if it ever happened. But I remember the dudes saying to the press, which was for us to finance their $60 million a day bullshit empire, was we're going to rewrite the books on Jupiter. What was that, 20 years ago? Have you seen any new books on Jupiter? Because I haven't. I haven't seen anything that my physics / astronomy teacher in high school didn't tell me in the mid-'80s. And so I started, that started kind of a sniffy, starts to smell a little, and I asked, I believe my uncle at the time, at least I asked somebody, and I said, what is the deal with this hoarding of information, And that's exactly what they said. They go, oh, these guys want to discover everything first, name it after themselves, and then they're good. They're good to put the information out there because they don't want to put it, even just pictures of the stars from observatories. They'll never just publish that, even though we pay for every fucking penny of this. It's all public domain information. They won't let us see the before and after shots so we can find maybe a stellar object that's moving in space, right? If it's an American observatory, they certainly don't want some university in Japan to do a better job looking at the data. So there's a little bit of, face building in that experience. We are better than you. Look what we were capable of doing with this information. But even within our own society, it's allowed. It's crazy. So life is good. And there's some sicknesses we got out there, right? We have mental sicknesses. And just irrespective of like short attention span, which blows my mind. I mean, I think that the Gen Zs and whatever's after that, they're really just migrating away from social media and technology. They want to get back to like hanging out and doing analog things, which is very, very cool. But the rest of us, old school folks, I'm seeing this one algorithm of domination, of trying to be better than somebody else. And it's a bizarre psychosis that develops, I believe, when society has nothing else to think about. We know when we watch media, the pixel power thing, we get programmed. We listen to music, we get programmed. Internet, everything. Everything's designed to program you. Even independent, like AKA truth sites, well, they're trying to program you with their truth. I mean, what am I doing here? I'm just trying to share information, but when I'm passionate about something, I'm probably guilty of the same thing. I think I can see it clearly, so I'm trying to pass it on. Trying to get your opinion to craft my opinion, because it's like a big piece of clay. We're all big pieces of clay, and it's almost like the analogy is like we're a bunch of clay in a art studio. I'm my pile of clay, you're and the cool thing is that you're reaching over and fixing my ear, and I'm reaching over and making your nose a little straighter. Like we're all working on each other if it's ideally put together, right? But this thing of being there first is one of the weirdest things ever. And I didn't notice it until it was, and I was guilty of it as hell, especially as a young person. But the big one that is easy to itemize is something bad happens in the world, and there are people that want to be the first people to tell the world. And it's not a Paul Revere situation. It's not like, oh my God, be careful. It's 190 degrees outside, and I'm telling all my friends who live in town, don't go outside. Nah, it's not like that. It's almost categorically something you can't change. And one of the most infamous ones is someone just died. And, there are people in your life that when they pass away as celebrities or what have you, famous people, it affects you because they were a big part of your life. You know everything about them. They were just a part of your life. They were a musician or an actor or something. Musicians tend to have, I think, slightly more impact on you because you listen to their records all the time. You can wake up every day and listen to the same song, but you won't wake up every day and watch your favorite movie every day. And when things are sudden, of course, it's shocking, and then you're just in shock, and you're trying to find other people that are in shock too, and then you're going, okay, let's just all try to work together and appreciate this moment and calm down. I'm not talking about those. They just want to be the first person to tell you something bad happened. They're in the know is sort of the subtext of that exercise. They don't have any mysteries is what they want you to believe. Because they're always in the right place at the right time to get all the mysteries of life worked out. Just ask me, But now let's combine all of this into an image. Because this is where I think it becomes sort of the twist in our script. Now, when I think of NASA, I've been to Florida a couple times, and I remember what was it, Cape Canaveral, right? And they got that big ass building that they used to build rockets in, and put together the shuttle and give it a nice "How's your father?" It's that famous warehouse. I don't know what the hell you call it, hangar, I guess. It's so big it rains inside that place all by itself. It'd be sunny and clear outside, and the rumor is it can accumulate its own atmosphere in there, which is, I find that a little hard to believe, but whatever. Okay, it's big. So put that in your brain. And now overlay all of the history and the need of man to get all of these things. Well, first it's just a big-ass building. It's impressive. It's an impressively huge building. Then overlay on it that it's an authority. Then overlay on it that it's sort of a symbol of the things that NASA's done, supposedly. Gone to the moon 6 times. At least landed on the moon 6 times, orbited it, a dozen times. Did the space shuttle. It's both the celebratory history of NASA and the tragedies of NASA. But it's the perseverance of NASA. And if you're an American citizen, oh my gosh, it is just another flag. I think there's a flag on it, right? So it is a flag in itself to the consciousness of Americans. I don't know how you guys think about it in a different country. I mean, every country contributes in the first world, usually. But it also represents the future of our capabilities. If you stay in tune with NASA, and you learn everything that they're doing, and you get yourself stuck in a little cocktail conversation and after work, or you're sitting by the water cooler, or you're Zooming with somebody, or whatever, smoking a stogie, and you're just like, you got it all in there tucked away because you look at the NASA.gov website and, man, you know all the history of the previous missions, what missions are coming up, the results of the recent mission that just concluded. Man, you just whip that stuff out and, oh my gosh, it is going to be impressive to the average Joe, maybe even to the non-average Joe. And so it represents sort of this gift that keeps giving. So now that building, and a visual metaphor of Hollywood, if we were to shoot that building and really give it the effects overlay that it needs to really look like what it is to us, it's just glowing and beaming and throbbing. It's just whoa, 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 whoa. This building is everything you need to know if you're a geek like me, Apple's UFO up in Cupertino. It glows for those that are fanboys of Apple. Now, they obviously understand too, because I got a book before Bezos was ever a billionaire. They basically talked about guerrilla marketing, and it said you must, after looking at what happened to Steve Jobs and Ford and CEOs that were just really renowned as being the guy or gal that ran an institution, that you got to build up this individual in the eyes of your customer, make them a superhero. So when they walk in the room, it is like Jesus himself has just miraculously teleported from his spaceship in low orbit. They understand this. And so they build it up around brands. What's branding do? For those of you in marketing, you know this. You are to build up and reinforce a logo as a Pavlovian trigger to make sure that when that shape, that Nike little swoop, shows up in people's minds, that they just get wet inside, This little algorithm is controlling a lot. And it's controlling us too. No matter how intelligent we get, there's always a new thing out there. Now, the one that will be legitimate for you is if there's an institution out there that is really producing good content. You don't care about the accolade of knowing the information whatsoever. You're looking for solutions to problems you're trying to solve. Perhaps you're trying to invent something. Or the straightest laced objective is sticking with that institution makes you rich because it teaches you things that you can convert into either a product or a service. So it's also potentially cutting down the amount of time it takes for you to get things done. And what's really funny, just as a kind of tangent to the curve of what we're talking about here, the older that you are, and I would say at least 40 and over, we've had to learn how to utilize the services that are out there. Because, I'll give you like a couple examples. You know, when you want to learn how to fix something in your house, fix a car, fix something. A lot of my generation doesn't think that YouTube exists. I mean, they know it exists, but they don't realize it's an institution as well. Go and search on what the hell you need to fix. You'll see 50 videos that were made in the last 12 months on that thing. Yeah, just follow the thing. Just have your phone right there at your washer and dryer and you're putting a new handle on the door or whatever it is. You have to figure that stuff out. Really funny one for me is that the routers at everybody's house used to be all software driven, where you would have to like have a session with the guy who shows up at your door and he's asking you what your password is, which is kind of shitty because that guy could fucking hack your network because they'll know your password. So the second he leaves the room, you change that password so you can't get into it. Now the modems ship with the passwords printed on the outside of the box. I mean, outside of the unit that's in your house. So if you want to get into your password, I guess technically you could change it. You have to, and you know, they usually wire them pretty tight. If you're good, you don't have like a 6-foot loop behind your television so you can drag this thing all over your house. Now they give you a little bit of slack, about a foot of slack on the wire, and then it's right there. And the minute you pack it behind some furniture or something, it's hard to turn it 360 or 180 so you can look at the bottom to see the password, right? Well, my generation is still flipping it upside down. And then our eyesight sucks, and so you're trying to figure it out. What I do nowadays, you know, I've been doing this for a decade, is I just take my telephone, I put it on the telephoto setting, and I just turn the flash on, and I just lift up the modem, put the phone underneath it, and snap shots of the password, and then I got it forever. I've had friends call me up and ask me what their password was because I still had it. If someone's going to give you their credit card information, a buddy, a client or something like that, and they're trying to read it to you or something, you just go, just give me the card. You just take the card on your phone, you snap it front and back, so you have the security code on the back. You're good to go. Just make sure you delete that photo when you're done, right? And make sure you don't have Google Photo Sync turned on. Mysteries are a huge part of what makes us tick. Huge. And, you know, the whole thing of the modern age, too, when, again, you don't have anything else to do because everything's taken care of for you. You want to eat Mexican restaurant, we'll drive over there. You want to eat fast food, hamburgers over there. You want any type of service or product, well, there's 50 stores in your neighborhood that you can go to get that thing that you want. Man, unbelievable how we'll collapse if we lose power for any length of time, right? I think that if we were to have the God facts on this particular statement I'm about to make, it would be fascinating to see the curve go up as luxury also went up in this world. And that would be sort of paranoia and suspicion. When you got more time on your hands, you're sitting there thinking about things and overthinking things and well, if you're really busy, I guarantee you don't have a lot of time to think things over. I'll use various games to relax at night before I actually nod off in bed. And I play this one called X2 Blocks. It's fascinating. It's just cool. And, you know, I'm just matching things up and trying to make it really cool. And that's when the day comes crashing back to me. Because the game is very calming. It quiets my mind, but then my mind won't listen to that shit. And, of course, the black apples are all over the place here and there, although I've pretty much nailed that problem. Go see my episode on black apples to understand that. Uncertainty is a word I think that we only can use as a more sophisticated society. Well, you know, I don't feel so great. I'm just kind of nervous or whatever. Well, what's the deal? It's just uncertainty at my job. There's uncertainty here in my relationship, uncertainty with my health, or whatever it is. You're uncertain. It's that festering little loop inside you that needs to go away. Ignorance is bliss, right? They always tell you ignorance is bliss. And what's really interesting about that statement is the second that you understand the true, profound nature of ignorance is bliss, it becomes this thing that you had when you were young. The concept gets to you. Someone says that to you, and you look at that concept and you go, oh my gosh, I was Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden in 100% bliss. And we got convinced by this serpent to do this thing. And then all of a sudden, that utopia is shown to you. This is bliss. and you will never be ignorant again. Poof. And it goes behind the glass. It becomes a hologram. You can see through it, meaning you can't touch it ever again. You could never have it again. And it's this macabre thought. Oh man, I had bliss. I had it right here. Maybe someone give me a lobotomy so I get back to bliss, right? Nope. Once you crawl through that membrane, you can never go back on the other side. Now, there's all kinds of benefits of being on the other side, but boy, you got upgraded, didn't you? You got all the pleasure and all the pain at the same time. I just watched the new Marvel movie with the new Chinese character. This guy, I don't even know what the hell the name of the movie is. It's pretty funny. I mean, the first half is so funny, and then it gets really heavy towards the end. But it's a great movie. Good. It's well made, and it's got some cheaper special effects because they're just launching the franchise. But there's a point when this main character gets to this place, and somebody says to him, "This won't ruin anything for you." But they said an interesting twist. I assume this is maybe a saying that they have in China that we don't have, at least in America, on a regular basis. But this woman says to our main character, she says, look, the faster that you be true to yourself, the faster that all the pain will go away. And just invert that, right? You know, if you're not true to yourself, then you're going to have a ton of pain. It's a very interesting thing because we are trying to master our own brains here. And mystery is just one of these things of like, mystery can be the most euphoric thing on planet Earth. You know, I'm learning Blender 3D every day. I'm taking classes every day. I'm experimenting with all these wild, the intro to this season 7's kicking my ass. But I'm making progress. You know, and it's like, it's almost like learning how to draw. Anything in life is learning how to draw, in my opinion. I always tell students and little kids especially, I said, what's beautiful about learning how to draw is that you don't unlearn how to draw. And even if you take a hiatus for 10 years and you don't draw much and then you start drawing again, bizarrely, while you weren't drawing, your brain was developing more acuity to analyze things and be prepared to draw things, right? You're able to move those concepts from inside your mind, which are completely this intangible, dreamy world, into the physical reality just by scoring a piece of paper or creating a pixel decision in a grid in memory. That's fascinating. And that's where, what can you do is the big question. What are you capable of doing? That in itself is a mystery. Those are the most exciting mysteries that we should fester and manifest, right? What's fascinating in the last 5 to 6 years is this, you know, this temporary obsession that the internet had, and a lot of you are still very true to it. And I don't mean to say obsession in a bad way. Like I've always told you guys, there's a lot of benefits to any form of thinking that makes your whole brain flip, 90 degrees. I only say not 180 because 180 is rejecting every concept that you were just inside of. 90 is like, all right, I'm still here, but I'm thinking about all this different. I'm going to put all this data together in a complete unique way. But the flat earth movement, very, very interesting to see this thing pop up. And it's allowed to grow and it's allowed to sustain because a lot of these claims about where we are and what's going on is unverifiable by the public. There's this huge barrier from going to the South Pole unless you're a scientist. As if your government cares whether you live or die. You can go to Everest and die and be frozen for decades and decades and decades up there. They got bodies up there, probably been up there 60, 70 years, probably a few hundred years if you just really looked hard enough. Apparently, when you crawl to the peak of Mount Everest, there's people that are frozen in the ground, and they've been there for so long. They got names and they're landmarks to figure out how far you've got to go to get to the top. I mean, wow. So what the fuck do they care if you go down to the South Pole and you're looking for the dome wall and you die? What do they care? Oh, they really care about the what is it, the Icelandic turtle or something? I mean, I'm just making it up, but it's like some nature thing. I don't think too many people are going to take the trip down there in the first place without having a ton of money. And I don't think anyone would go down there to look for such things without having a fairly decent plan. And if you get a guy who puts himself in a rocket and kills himself, well, there you go. He died doing whatever he wanted to do. And the rumor was that dude didn't really believe it was flat. He was taking advantage of the movement to make money. I do not know either way. But those are first world mysteries. Those are first world things that you can follow because you got the bills paid. You want some heat, turn the heater on. You want it to be cooler, turn the air conditioner on. You're hungry, go get some food. That's the kind of lifestyle you live in order to conceive of the priority of flat Earth. As the world goes to shit, people are looking for an angelical connection to God, and they want to find it. They want to physically find this thing. Because I'm assuming the idea is if you find the wall, it's like the Truman Show, you can walk through the door. Some people think it's a wall. Some people think it's just the other islands on the outside, and it becomes tropical. Was it Admiral Byrd? I heard so many things that, these claims that they saw dinosaurs and all kinds of okay, now I know you're lying, right? But so we've got these institutions to finish out this entire segment here. Now you have institutions that have never been known for being authorities in science, especially trying to make you feel stupid for not doing what they say. And it's like the news. The news is not supposed to be an oracle of knowledge to educate you on something other than to say something happened today. We got either footage or we got eyewitness accounts. We're going to give you the backgrounds of the people that are giving you the eyewitness so you can make up your own mind whether or not you think the town drunk should tell you what happened last night downtown. Or is it your professor friend that's never told a lie, So they've also added to this whole thing actors. Bill Nye the douchebag guy, right? He's a fucking actor from, a Seattle, Washington show where they basically said, we need a science segment on our show. Go put on that lab coat and pretend to be smart. We got a producer that's going to tell you everything to say. And then the guy absorbs into that role. And I'm sure he's learned a lot in his years before he got totally bought out. But now the guy's just a condom for the deep state, right? We have folks that went and got degrees and probably taught for a little while and then went, well, the money's okay, but Jesus, I sure would like to be a celebrity because as a nerd at a university, the one thing that you're thinking to yourself is I will never achieve those fame-based things. Being in a movie, being in a music video, being on TV, being on a series, being a reoccurring person, having my own TV show. You don't think you can offer these folks those accolades or those prizes and they won't sell out everything? Oh my God, you are engaging their highest level of insecurity and regret for making the decisions that they made, having had society reprioritize their life upside down. Educating souls is, whatever. But getting on TV and spewing whatever's told for you, whatever's written down for you, spewing that stuff. Doesn't matter if it's true or false. And always remember, if you had a handler, but you didn't know it, you thought it was your friend. But every single time you did what your handler said, you made money. And you got fame. And you made money. And you got fame. What is your likelihood of doing what that person tells you to do in a future engagement? If they come up on your cell phone, their face, their phone number comes up on your cell phone, are you happy to hear from them or not? That's how the game's played, man. And what's really interesting is there is some science around the mathematics of that whole thing, right? You would be put in one of the most coveted, rare positions on planet Earth. I don't know if any of you have thought about this. I'm sure a lot of you, if not every single one of you, have had this thought. And it occurs to you when you watch really popular, now syndicated shows on TV. You watch Star Trek, any of the Star Treks from the 60s up. And, maybe with an exception, Deep Space Nine and Enterprise probably didn't quite have this at a mega level, but I'm sure they did. I mean, they had it at enough. But these people became heirlooms to the world who love those franchises. Just pick any show. The two actors from Cheers that played Norm and Cliff Clavin. Okay, they did things after that. The Cliff guy did a lot less, but the Norm guy was in all kinds of stuff. You walk in the room, that dude walks in the room, and there's just this aura of love for that person. It builds up. And those are just good folks that are actors. But you do it to the academic realm to satiate this mystery curve. And everyone's just frothing to have certain answers to certain questions. But now, was society so concerned with this kind of thing? I've mentioned one factor, which is that the more you're suffering or the more you don't have luxuries in life, maybe you're not suffering, you don't have any time to think about this bullshit. You're living in, Kansas, and it's 1875, and it's like, man, you got to get up and get some water, get some milk, go work on the farm, go do whatever you got to do. You're not worried about whether or not the world is flat or round. You don't care. You got barely enough time to get anything done so you can get home to your 20 kids who are helping you work the farm before you got to just knock out and go to bed. I mean, the grit of these parents back in that time frame just really blows my mind, right? Now, I got an episode that's going to come up before this one, and it's all about them steering your mind towards the problem, injecting the question in the mind of the person such that they feel like they need an answer in the first place. Well, I can tell you, up to about 2015, I was completely content with the heliocentric world model. I mean, 100% content. There was no thought in my mind as to whether or not the world was flat or round or a square or whatever. Once this movement came up, and a bunch of little things, are like, oh yeah, oh wow, yeah. Well, you can't do that in a flat. That whole thing was just a refresher course on, hey, don't be so sure what you know. Well, then it made me really curious. A good friend of mine here in town, boy, he obsessed on that thing. And we all sat there, looking for new episodes to see if someone would prove some of these theories, the gyroscope not turning in a plane, all that kind of stuff. Still haven't seen it. Seems like it'd be easy. Cell phone, video camera. So that's another part of the game. The new layer 2 is to sit there and go, we're going to manipulate society by injecting mystery, which is going to evolve into insecurities. How do they manipulate us politically on just sort of an obtuse level? Well, they make you fear. Well, one, they make you believe you're a part of a group. That's a kiss of death. You are left, you are right, you are in the middle, whatever it is, right? And then they'll say, and we all have these feelings, I'm not immune, but they'll say, well, that group over there, just think about what they're planning for your group. All that stuff you like to do, they don't like that stuff. In fact, they like a bunch of criminal stuff. Now, a lot of that's true, okay? Probably on both sides of the fence. But that's the way they do it. And man, then you're uneasy. Again, it's calmed down recently, which is kind of nice. People just going back to work. We're hearing all these bullshit stories about, the COOF surging in certain areas so they can lock everybody down. The new PCR test. The new test is coming out in December, and boy, you're going to see this thing die in 2 seconds. Influenza is going to spike like you've never seen it in history, basically being recorded for the first time in 2 years, and this other COOF stuff is just going to vanish. It'll be interesting to see countries that have totally bought this lock, stock, and barrel, or allow their politicians to create sort of this tyrannical pass system. Once it goes away, because it will go away, stop taking it in a drink. That's how you get it, right? Once everybody refuses, they won't catch it anymore, and then we're good. But of course, they're threatening us with new things, and it should be understood that they're threatening us with a new thing. Well, now say, Marburg is the Ebola variant, and now they're trying to say smallpox is going to come back, and oh my God, same motherfuckers keep telling us this stuff like Bill Gates, right? It's a threat. It's a threat right to your face. It couldn't be construed as anything else. That these fuckers have like these magic balls that could just tell you exactly what's going to take place. Oh yeah, well, why don't you give that magic ball to the FDA because they haven't been able to create an accurate flu vaccination for 20 fucking years. Why don't you figure out, which one we're all going to be catching out of the 264 variants that are out there? Not so much, huh? It's one of these things when Al Gore did his, Inconvenient Lies movie in the end of 2006, which has all been debunked. Everything he said would happen, including Montecito going underwater by 2010. He bought a house there right after he got his millions from that movie. He still lives there to this day. It ain't underwater. So everything he said was bullshit. But now a lot of us that had our heads firmly out of our asses by the time he came up with that movie, we said, look, now wait a minute. They can't predict whether or not it's going to be hot or cold tomorrow. And even if it is, they can't predict the range of what I'm going to feel. And so you can't predict that, but you're going to tell me you got the overall curve of the world's climate down. When you can't identify what's in the greenhouse gas layer index, 99% water, okay? Not CO2, right? What's the big thing that's happening right now? It's freaking everybody out. Creating uncertainty. But you need to ask yourself, according to the press, what are coronal mass ejections? Now, thing is if you're new to CME, record keeping and historical bursts from the sun, then boy, I guess this must just be like the boogeyman's in town. But if you've been an astronomer since you were a kid and you're 50 plus years old, CMEs are no big deal, man. They're all over the place. I mean, they've been throughout history. Yeah, they're cyclical. Sunspots are cyclical. Okay. But when you don't follow anything until the last second and you're told by CNN that this is a problem, it's unbelievable the amount of red pill organizations out there that are pumping CME fear mongering. Now, some of them put in the right wrapper and they say, look, this is just a scam. This is just see this and understand it's a scam to kick off some big, power grid downage. Guarantee you, there ain't no CME that's ever going to hit Earth, okay, that's going to affect a power grid. Radio communications at the most. Maybe we invent some other fragile technology like 5G, and yeah, maybe your 5G phone doesn't work that well in a particular area for a split second. Have you ever seen a pylon carrying those gigantic power lines? The coil's as thick as your forearm. And you're telling me that this little bit of electron cloud stuff that's at like 0.000001% that's hitting the lower atmosphere of Earth is going to do anything to that wire? Okay, you need to go look up what a megawatt is. And then you need to look up how much computer power you use to run your baddest machine in your house, and then do the delta on 1 megawatt and what your house is using on any one split second, and tell me how the CME is going to affect anything. For me, mystery has been probably my biggest passion in life. And I think everybody has that. But I was extremely aggressive about how does the universe work? How does the world work? I didn't get into the political world until probably 2005 because the data just wasn't there. But I will tell you, in my own experience, it doesn't take long to get awake. Just understand you'll go through phases. And the funny phase is when you feel like you got to tell the whole world that you're awake because you feel so good. And you don't have, the majority of the information. But you just feel good. I recently bumped into one of these people. And it's just wonderful, And they'll be telling you something you've known for 15 years as if it just dropped yesterday. It doesn't matter. They're waking up. That's good. It's like your little kid. If you have a little daughter or a little son, and they come in the room and they're so excited. They just figured out that if it rains at your house, it doesn't mean it's raining at grandma's house 100 miles away. Oh my gosh, I was talking to her and she said it was sunshiny where she is. And it was really raining hard here, or vice versa, Everyone has to go through their phase. And as adults, you simply go through them way faster because you have more faculties. Hopefully. These institutions are fueled by being authorities in various categories of things, from anthropologists to archaeologists to historians. The nice thing is at least math and some disciplines of science that we can verify here on planet Earth are fairly, ironclad. That's good. So we have at least a basis on what's going on. I'll button this up with a little bit of NASA thinking that gets into this category here. When I really realized that when, a propulsion rocket in a vacuum, which doesn't really exist, but, in terms of being, space is really an ethereal pool out there, but you can't grab onto that stuff without electromagnetism, right? So you just got a fuel-burning rocket out there in the middle of nowhere. It ain't going to do anything, okay, until it hits another atmosphere. It just can't. SpaceX has confirmed this several times. NASA's confirmed this several times in interviews. But they know nobody knows what the fuck they're talking about, so they just say it right to your face, and you're like, okay. But you think about every launch you've ever seen, the rocket immediately turns and starts really hugging the surface of the Earth. And the reason why is they have to stay in the realm of the interactive medium that we understand, which is the atmosphere. If that rocket propulsion coming out of the back of a cone is not pushing off of something, it's not going to do anything, man. You could have a rocket engine that's 1,000,000 times more powerful than any of the ones we've had on planet Earth and put it in space. Maybe 1,000,000 would work in ether, but let's just say 100 times more powerful, and you put it in space, you just immediately push it out into space and you hold it there, and then you just turn that thing on, you say, now come home. It's just going to burn all of its fuel. It's going to stay exactly in the same X, Y, Z coordinate relative to the span of whatever, if all that stuff is true. It won't do anything. So imagine trying to build science around something like going to the moon. Well, the second you start leaving the atmosphere of any density, it's over. The game is over. The jig is up. Nothing you have invented will make that happen, at least that we know of, right? Now, again, UFOs, pretty damn brilliant. Some of the theories out there, and again, by the mid-'60s, I saw a documentary once, again, probably around 2005, before they scrubbed everything off the web. But it was a great documentary on the sort of history of us discovering anti-gravity mechanisms above board being taught at universities. And they kept just filming one professor after another, drawing diagrams and then explaining what the hell that they were talking about. And I didn't have the ethereal knowledge that I have today, so I was like, okay, well, I don't understand why electromagnetism makes that work. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, that's something we can grip on to the stuff that the universe is made out of. So I know that NASA didn't claim overnight that they could just all of a sudden go to the moon. They did a lot of experimentation. That's where a lot of people go, well, they did everything they needed to do. Until you run up against the sort of black and white problem with the fact that they left the medium by which anything that they've invented works. The moon is pretty crystal clear. So whatever that thing is and wherever it is, there's not much atmosphere if there's any, because it would start getting a haze. It would start losing its clarity. Your little store-bought telescope or your 200x zoom camera would not see crystal clear, bubbles of volcanoes, formerly called craters. You wouldn't see it. So as soon as they were to get there, going 17,000 to 25,000 miles an hour, there's nothing to slow down, man. You can run that rocket engine all you want, but you would have to tear a hole in the surface of the moon in order to stop. And you'd have to have a plume out of the bottom of that thing that would be like a skyscraper underneath the lunar module to start hitting the surface in a way that you could cushion yourself before you would just squash into a nothingness. And that has nothing to do with the longitudinal movement around the moon itself. I mean, we talked about this 100 times on the show. But man wanted to know how. Non-scientific man wanted to know that we knew how. Because vicariously, and this is the other sort of bizarre thing about mysteries, if they said, Like, let's say you're a citizen of a village, and you're older, let's say you're 65, your back isn't good, you used to work really hard, you built nearly everything that the village currently lives in, so you've put your 2 cents in, right? Maybe you're a grandmother, and you've had, 20 kids, and you did your thing, and you're just not going to be able to defend the village. And all of a sudden, the sentries come in from the outside. One comes in and goes, "Oh my God, there's a beast out here I've never seen. It was as big as a house. Oh, wow." And so all the village hunters, the young kids and the generals, whatever you want to call them, chieftains, they all get together and they go out and they find this beast. And maybe they kill it. And it completely absolves the mystery, except that beasts procreate. Or at least they say, "Oh, it wasn't what this person thought it was. It was actually this thing and this thing, and it was just an elephant." The kid's young, he didn't know. He got next to like an alpha male elephant, and it just, rushed him and freaked him out. Well, that gives you a little sense of security, as long as someone else knows how to handle the situation. And that's a big one with the military for us. Americans have this disease probably more than any other country on planet Earth, because we put trillions and trillions of dollars into black ops stuff to develop all these weapons that we don't even know exists. We just want to be safe. Do you have a missile shield up there, but you said it wasn't launched? Great, you do. Okay, good. Can I watch a Tomahawk missile camera go straight into Slobodan Milosevic's palace? Yeah, oh, good. Whew. Oh, that's great. Glad that they know how to do that, because I feel protected. Police the same way, right? We have law and order because we have laws, and they are enforced up to a point, right? So as they manipulate the world, okay, and they want to create unrest for you, and you're feeling it, you fall for it. And maybe you are truly a victim of it. I want you to understand the bowels of the mechanism, so at least you can kind of laugh and go, well, that's what that dude was talking about. He's right. It's the mystery that's killing me. It's the uncertainty that's killing me. And 5 years ago, I didn't have this mystery. I didn't have this uncertainty, but they created it out of thin air using a false excuse. And so if you talk to someone who's still wearing panties on their face or whatever it is, giving you shit because you didn't get their medical regimen, you can remind them. You can remind them in your own subtle way how much a sucker they have been. And then tell them, me too, man. I got into that. It wasn't this particular thing, but it was the other thing. Maybe you thought Coney 2012 was real. Maybe you thought the world was going to end in 2012. Whatever it was artificial. It was there to manipulate you and control you, to scare you like a sheepdog. Anyway, as I always say, let me know what you think. This one's big and fundamental and subtle. It's that sort of programming that causes you to behave a certain way. If you ever feared that you're in a matrix and your body, although temporary vessel to your soul, which is yours, the soul is yours, the body you're borrowing. Well, if this body has been engineered by some very tangible source here in this universe, then they could predisposition you to be a particular way, and you wouldn't want to be that way. People get tumors in their brains and go absolutely insane shooting people. They're just odd because they have a defect in their body due to some probably localized toxin they were ingesting and didn't know it. A medicine that screwed them up, a food that screwed them up, a pollution that screwed them up. That's that subdermal thing that's causing them problems. Well, mysteries are a subdermal manipulating force underneath our society. I think that's about it. If you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, short bumper today, everything you need's up there. Just remember there's a search field, and there are hundreds and hundreds of episodes. So entertain yourself. For all those of you who support me on PayPal and Patreon, thank you so much. We're doing really well over there. Really appreciate it. They do get unique episodes, and after a certain minimal amount of contribution, once it starts working, your pledge starts working, we can arrange Zoom calls and that kind of stuff, whatever you like. Anyway, take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now.